Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of Normie Impressions of, a podcast in which I get three of my normie friends to dive deeper down the rabbit hole that is anime, via first impressions usually. So we're talking mostly just one episode. Sometimes we fuck up and we have to do three, mostly because of Ryan's fault. Other times we talk about movies like we're going to do today. And just as an aside to the person who tampered with my notes, one of my two roommates, who tampered with my notes and typed in something in the introductions part. I am not going to read that, and fuck you.
No, that wasn't me.
Could you just read it so that everyone knows what was said, what was written?
I won't give you the satisfaction. Anyway, Today we are talking about Princess Mononoke, a 1997 film from Studio Ghibli and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, best known for his memes, "Anime was a mistake," and "I feel this is deeply insulting to life itself." That's the only two things he's ever done in his life. I don't want to talk about Ghibli or Miyazaki anymore because I want you fuckers to talk about it. So what do those two names mean to you guys?
I know that they did Spirited Away, which is really well-renowned. Usually regarded as one of the best animated movies of all time.
But
I know that they're regarded really highly.
It makes me think of Gibbles from Tenacious D. Isn't that like a nickname for one of the main characters?
I don't think so.
Or Gerbil,
Jables.
something like that. Gables.
It's Jables.
Well, that's what it made me think of. Nonetheless.
Well, it's completely wrong.
Nevertheless.
Because it's not even the same. They don't even pronounce it anywhere close to the same way.
Well, and yet it evoked that emotion within me. So.
I know that Spirited Away must be good because one of my friends, who she probably doesn't even really know what anime is, has a Spirited Away poster in her room. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? She's like, yeah. So
you don't even really need to like anime that much to appreciate that movie. It's just like it's just a really well done animated movie.
I don't think I've ever seen that. I've heard of it before, but
yeah, it transcends. This is the normie
culture.
Yeah, so what I'm getting out of this is you have all heard of Studio Ghibli, obviously the animation studio behind it, and Miyazaki, the director, who is also responsible for, as you pointed out, Spirited Away. And you wouldn't be wrong in knowing these things because they are indeed super popular to the point that Hayao Miyazaki was, last year, if I remember correctly, was honored by the Academy here in the U.S. for a Lifetime Achievement Award. And Spirited Away had previously won Best Animated Film in whatever year that came out. And he's been nominated multiple times. His films have been nominated multiple times in that regard. So it makes sense that I was kind of curious if you had any experience, because obviously plenty of people don't know what any of this shit is. But the three of you are at least somewhat in touch, that I felt that that's about the amount of knowledge I figured you'd have.
It is.
Honestly, Ghibli didn't ring a bell, but I am familiar with Spirited Away.
I heard of Ghibli before, and I knew it was a Miyazaki thing.
So that brings me to my next question. With all that in mind, does this remind you at all of anything that maybe a Western studio might produce, or any sort of like Western entertainment in general?
Well, I did see an article today from Vice that suggested that maybe the Stone Men from Game of Thrones is actually based off of the infliction that is caused on the main character in this movie. How it started in the arm and it spreads throughout, causing a visible physical deformity.
And like all Game of Thrones theories, they're tearing their ACLs on those fucking stretches.
Yeah, that's my favorite stretch.
Well, it was a Vice article. It's not like a random YouTuber. That doesn't make it any more plausible, of course, but I'm saying that's why I even came across it in the first place. I don't like looking up Game of Thrones theories. I hate when they're right.
All right, so any other thoughts there besides Game of Thrones shit?
As far as how it relates to any kind of Western entertainment we can think of?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe Pocahontas? It's a pretty classic theme with men coming in and they're disturbing nature, and then the natives of that land, in this case the animals for Princess Mononoke, I guess they're referred to the tribes of specific gods at the heads, and they're the ones defending it against man.
And the people of the Ironworks were the real savages.
Classic nature versus man.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty typical. I mean, I don't know. I've seen that a lot. Pocahontas is definitely one that comes to mind, but there's others too. I think.
Space Pocahontas, otherwise known.
Pocahontas in space.
Avatar.
Avatar.
Yes.
Indeed.
But you're right, Ryan, in thinking that it's that theme there, because Miyazaki is very much known for his two of his biggest sort of stances in life that he pushes into his work is one, the relationship with man and between man and nature, and that it should be sort of more mutually beneficial, balanced. And the other is he's very anti-war, to the point where he never really wanted to come here to accept any of his awards, because he's always been very outspoken against America's involvement in
imperialism.
But you were also on track in another regard, Pocahontas, because what I'm getting at is that they are considered the Disney of Japan. I know this film's a bit more graphic than what you would see in a Disney or a Pixar film.
Blood is flowing out.
Yeah, but a lot.
Yeah, it caught me off guard the first time someone's head just flew off when he shot an arrow. I was like, what the fuck?
Or when the boar sort of just like disintegrated in front of everybody.
More blood than
That's
anyone's
pretty cool.
ever had in their bodies.
Yeah, but
Just gallons.
as I was getting at, they are considered the Disney of Japan, and for good reason, because they make the biggest animated films out there, and to the point that, like Disney always does when any sort of competition, they say, hey, those guys are really fucking talented, let's buy them up. So they did, and technically Studio Ghibli is now a subsidiary of Disney, just in the same way that Pixar is. Because currently I have a movie from Ghibli sitting here, My Neighbor Totoro, and on top it says Disney on there. And
Wow. Well, alright, Star Wars too. Trying to be less surprised by that. Disney pretty much just owns everything nowadays.
yeah, and they have more whimsical stuff that falls in line. But I even in this film, I feel like you get some hints of it being whimsical and sort of, and maybe a different culture where this sort of violence may be a bit more, you maybe understand it a bit better at a younger age, that you could get a sense of why this vibes with Disney.
How do you mean? I'm trying to...
The feudal war era, just kind of...
I guess
Well,
besides the really graphic violence, I could see the theme fitting in with Disney.
I can see how that age in Japan, children are known of their feudal state, back in the day, as they'll refer to it. So I guess they'd be familiar with the kind of the very most basic themes that are in the movie. I don't know if that's what you mean.
But if you stripped out the gore in this movie, in a lot of ways, a lot of the themes and the presentation style and just the music of it, and just how it just has that very natural uplifting vibe, and then it's not malicious in a lot of ways. There are people getting killed, but there's the villains in it aren't exactly always punished in the same. They're punished, but in the same way that you would see in a Disney movie. It's not like they are viciously murdered or anything like that. And it has that sort of vibe that it feels like it could be a more mature Disney movie. It would be like they're not Black Cauldron Disney, because that's probably the most mature Disney movie I can think of off the top of my head. But if you're
some Disney
about
movies.
Hocus Pocus.
That's terrifying. We don't talk about that.
Let's
I forget what the conflict in that
Disney
movie
Channel
is.
movie.
They're just trying to save themselves from a force. There's not even a villain in that movie, is there?
What are you
Well,
talking about? You talking about this movie or Black Cauldron?
Hocus Pocus.
Oh, well, it's like Halloween, and the three witch sisters come back or whatever. They hadn't been there, they hadn't been alive for years or something like that.
Oh, they're the villains.
they've
Yeah,
been-
that's right.
yeah.
There's that kid, the virgin. Yeah. You're right. Anyway,
I don't
Miller.
have to bring
sorry to get off track. Take it away.
It's yet another
Game,
Hocus
take the
Pocus
wheel.
tangent.
Jameson, take the wheel.
That was really what I wanted to say, and try to probe you guys into thinking, does this feel like something you would show to a kid minus the gore, or something else that the studio would produce? Because most of the stuff, this is by far their most graphic film.
Yeah, I didn't find it that gory, to be honest. I thought there was definitely a lot of death in it, and there were some parts where blood was like a main sort of theme within that scene.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was unnecessarily gory. I don't think they were trying to put a lot of emphasis on the fact that there's a lot of like violence going on. I think they just didn't shy away from the violence in the film, which was appreciated. It would have been stupid every time he attacked someone with a sword or shot an arrow, like just nothing happened, or I don't know, someone died off screen.
I think that they didn't shy away from the violence, but the gore was almost always emphasized only when the animals were dying or damaged. You'd see it was noticeable that when he would shoot the arrow and a head someone would be decapitated, their arms would come off. There'd be no blood,
no splatter or anything.
Well, the only time that
there wasn't
would
a lot
happen,
of gore for a human in this movie.
The only reason I think that they were emphasizing the head coming off and the arm falling off and stuff when he was shooting the arrows is the only time that happened on screen was when he was using his cursed arm, or when the hate was flowing through him and he was becoming noticeably more powerful. I think they were using that as like a tool to show you like just how much more powerful he was when he utilized that.
Right, and
like,
that was
he shot arrows before in the movie without using that arm, and it wasn't having that effect. I think they were just doing that over exaggeration to show the effect of like, whoa,
Yeah, that was obviously the point of those scenes, but I'm just saying that yes, thanks to his arm, he was able to inflict devastating damage with an arrow, so much so that he was able to decapitate his enemies. But I'm saying in that decapitation, or in the amputation of the bilateral amputation of the guy's arms in the very beginning, there was almost no blood. But when you saw the animals dying, there would be just an ocean of blood flowing from their mouth and their wounds.
Yeah, they were trying to show like brutality in those scenes, and in the other scenes they were trying to show just pure strength. But I guess logic befelled them there when it came to the fact that if you cut somebody's arm or head off, there's going to be blood.
Yeah. So to answer Miller's question about whether or not we'd show it to children, I mean, I wouldn't hesitate, with or without the gore, if only because, children typically less squeamish looking at an animal in pain, though the point of this movie is for them to feel empathetic towards nature and animals, but then the gore kind of helps get that point across. Without clearly the animators, the director or whatever, decided to kind of abstain from being that gory when it came to the human victims in the movie.
Well, he also the movie wasn't so black and white to the main character. It was very obvious that between the forest and the wolves and the boars, it was black and white to them that the humans needed to die. They needed to be stopped. They were going too far. And to the humans, they had no qualms, and they were not hesitating taking that forest from those animals. So but they had that sort of a dichotomy between the supporting cast, but the main character, he was all gray. He was always trying to find the good.
He was very neutral good.
Yeah, to the point where it almost annoyed me for a second, and then I kind of remembered what his character is. But
yeah, I mean, even that's kind of classic good guy protagonist. He's trying to please everyone,
Yeah, but it didn't come off
as a
like
last
he was
resort.
trying to please everyone. He just wanted the fighting to stop. He didn't want it to get that far in the first place, and he didn't want to do anything that would cause it to go further.
Sure, like when Miller said that the villains were treated almost as if you'd expect a villain in a Disney movie to be treated. He's referring, I assume, to the way that the protagonist insisted that the bad guys, quote unquote, in the movie, for example, we can just skip to the end where he basically saves the life of the main antagonist in the movie for no reason other than he doesn't see a reason to just let her die or kill her. And there are some Disney movies where the villain won't even get that kind of courtesy. You think I don't know, The Lion King, Scar literally gets ripped to shreds. You don't see it, but you see the silhouette of it happening off to the sides. There are villains in modern day Disney movies where the villain is treated with absolute just ruthlessness.
Yeah, but I think that goes
literally murdered.
That goes to show that the villains in this movie, though, weren't just strict evil antagonists. I mean, they were pretty deep. Like, even the antagonists in this movie are pretty multifaceted. Like, Lady Eboshi, or whatever. She
totally
clearly
immoral.
Maybe, but you got to look at it from you got to step
That
aside
seemed
and
like
look
a
at it from
joke.
her point of view. We're seeing both point of views as the viewer. We're watching the animals, and we're watching the forest suffer because of it. But from her point of view, the animals are vicious and they attack and they wound and there's demons and she bandages up all those humans. The humans see her as some kind of saint.
Yeah,
They
she
all
is.
love and appreciate her. She is their savior.
Yeah,
She is altruistic.
Everything she's doing from her point of view is to protect her people and to create a prosperous land. And she just doesn't see the forest as something that, I mean, she sees it as something that's expendable. But from the animal's point of view, it's absolutely not expendable, and that's why there's this war, and you need that neutral character to, like, kind of draw a gap, or, like, kind of bridge the gap between the two sides. And that's what's good about the movie.
Yeah. You're totally right in saying that, like, the villains are a bit more gray, and that Eboshi, who is the leader of sort of the industrialized movement in this movie, she is a good person in a lot of ways, because there's a line said to, like, from one of the supporting characters to the main character, Ashitaka, in that she goes around saving people that are in really shitty situations, particularly women who are in brothels and that sort of deal. That's why she has all these women working for her what's the Ironworks, in the Ironworks, and they absolutely adore her because she's a good leader. She cares for her people, and her
isn't that the reason that she wanted the head is to save people?
Yes, I mean, like she wanted to be able to make
the blood of the deer god could cure people. She wanted to make. Yeah. She wanted to do what she could to make her prosperous world. I mean, her vision of a good world might have been skewed, and that's why she's an antagonist. She wasn't considering a lot of things. She was putting her people ahead of everything else and nature, and which was pretty selfish. But everything she did had a reason for it.
Yeah, she's flawed, but not completely flawed. She has redeeming qualities, which is why Ashitaka, the protagonist, the guy who gets initially cursed at the very beginning of the movie because he's trying to defend his peaceful, nature-loving village, he goes on this journey to find a cure, and he comes across Eboshi in her industrialized sort of village and realizes she's doing things wrong, but she is a good person. There's a lot of good people who love her. And there's even that little scene where San, who the title sort of character, Princess Mononoke, comes into the village trying to kill Eboshi because San is raised by wolves and she considers herself a wolf and is trying to protect nature. And she comes into the village and there's one of the wives that had lost their husband to some sort of creature, probably wolf, I would wager. And you totally get why each side is right in that instance. It's not a usual children's movie where, like, the industrialized side would have been just, no, completely fuck over nature. We have no redeeming qualities. We just want to make money. And they'd just be greedy bastards. Meanwhile, Eboshi's actually a sympathetic villain.
Yeah, they made a point to show that she's a good person, at least from the perspective of her followers. Obviously, she has some flaws. That's why she's the villain, so... I mean, to Ryan's point, she's immoral. Like, she might be, but not from her standpoint.
Amoral.
She's not.
Well, it's just I was thinking. Sorry, I was thinking more kind of like this isn't quite the world that we live in. If you want to like dive in, these animals in the movie were highly intelligent and could speak somehow or another. Apparently, throughout or with no like. I don't know, training or experience around these animals as necessary, because the main character, Ashitaka, he is able to understand the wolves and the boars in their conversation shortly after meeting them. So, like, you might be able to let that go regarding San, because she was raised by wolves. But no, apparently these animals are able to communicate with just the Japanese language with, little to no effort. So... this was a war between just two equally intelligent species.
Yeah, but you can argue who started the war. Cool. Like I said, like Eboshi is just creating this prosperous land where she goes around helping people, and she's trying to create this iron forge and try to create prosperity for her people. And the animals attack her just as much as she attacks them. There's a war. You said the word war. That's right on the nose. There's sides to be had on. I mean, there's points to be had on both sides.
Well, yeah, but that's because
Just because they're
she
animals
was-
doesn't make them more moral than if they were humans. Like if it was
Right,
a
no, but
warring
this
human
was a
faction.
war between humans that led the lady, what's her name, Iboshawa or whatever the hell her name is, Iboshi, that led Lady Iboshi to go to this one village, settle there, and create it into what it was in the movie. She did that for the sake of combating men in a war, but in doing so she drew resources out of the domain of these animals, these intelligent species,
But
the forest.
They're not all.
She just started
completely
tapping in.
They're not all completely intelligent because the ones that are doing the communicating are the ones that are the
The gods and the tribes.
So they're the rare ones that come along. You probably don't have interactions with them because
Representatives.
Yeah, but that's not. They're not like They're not
They're
being
dumb humans.
They're not. It's not like a situation where you send over representatives to another country. You don't have ambassadors. Like, this is obviously very taking a lot from Japanese religion and Shintoism.
Can we agree that the fact that we're even having this conversation is enough to show that she obviously has some redeeming qualities and she's not completely evil?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she
I
was
mean, that's
able
the
to be
whole point of the
almost fully
conversation.
redeemed by the end. Like, it was like, no, I understand that. I think it was obvious
She's
even from
rational
her
from the
point of
beginning,
view
though.
that what she was doing to the forest was wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it just depends on who.
She
if
was
you
making
value the
sacrifices.
forest.
It's a give and take.
Yeah.
You make sacrifices for your people.
Well,
It's
right,
a story as
but
old
what-
as time.
but-
Humans do that against humans forever. You're not necessarily inherently evil.
Sure, but that
Hitler was
sacrifice
rational.
comes with the consequence of being judged in this way. That's all part of it. Like, you don't get to just get away with it in the eyes of a viewer like me.
Yeah, but
I
you
get what
could
you're
get
getting
away
at.
with it.
Like, I get what she's getting at, but it's still unacceptable to me.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, and on the opposite side, there are parts of nature that they like the boars, for example. They just want to outright just eliminate humans, which is equally wrong. Like,
Yeah, they
Yes.
represented just the pure hatred of nature versus human on that side of it. The wolves were more rational, if anything, and the deer god represented like benevolence of nature and just completely. The deer god just seemed completely neutral and just like. Just it showed no emotion other than just like pure nature and benevolence, and just like it was just wanted its fucking head back. It just wanted nature to be returned to its form. It was really cool. They had like a bunch of different.
Themes.
I feel like a bunch of different factions in this movie represented a bunch of different emotions and a bunch of different viewpoints.
Yeah, I didn't like the guy who said he was a priest in the beginning. That short midget guy. Fucking.
I knew
don't
he
think
was
he
going
was
to be a
meant to
little
be
asshole.
likable.
Yeah, me
Jiko's
too.
the one like clear-cut
Yeah.
villain in this almost. Like he's.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
he gets
he's-
redeemed at the
he's
end.
just an
too,
asshole.
Just by,
I mean, he just
get
doesn't.
redeemed. He just gives up.
Yeah, he just says,
He literally says, "I give
you
up.
got me.
You can't win against fools."
You guys are crazy."
yeah. You fools.
I was
Saving
hoping
the whole
Yeah.
I
world.
thought he was gonna die. I thought like because San and Ashitaka were holding the head that's why they survived. And then Jiko pops up too. I'm like, why aren't you dead?
I mean, that would go back to what I was saying before. Like this, it may have some gore in it, but it's not like it doesn't batter its characters unnecessarily. So Jiko, meanwhile, is definitely probably the most irredeemable person of this film. But at the same time, it's not just outright slaughtering him for because it falls in line with Miyazaki's views of war, and not really. You would get the sense that this guy doesn't want to just
He doesn't
outright
want to eliminate
Yeah.
either side.
Yeah. Like he sees that there is value in pretty much every side, but also that just war in general is. There's no good outcome. I mean, that's. To get to another movie that I know at least two of you have seen is Grave of the Fireflies, which is another Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
And the entire point of that movie is told from this perspective of. He didn't direct that. I don't think he's very involved in it. One of the co-founders of Studio Ghibli directed it. But the entire point of that movie, told from the perspective of two orphans living during World War II, is that war is fucking awful and there are no winners. And like that vibes throughout this movie as well.
Easy for Japan to say there were no winners. Am I right?
Jesus. Well, yeah, no, I know you were saying that to be funny, but you do have a point, though. I mean, that movie was based off of an actual historical event.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I disagree with dropping the bomb on both bombs on Japan, but I'm just saying that I understand the perspective.
If you actually think about, like, they destroyed one of our naval bases, and I think the death count for that was like, I don't know, like a couple thousand maybe, and then maybe 30 or so ships, or maybe a couple hundred ships at the most, and we just nukes on two of the biggest cities in Japan.
Yeah, it's just like 9/11.
Over exaggerated.
It's just like 9/11. We're for which we just had an anniversary. We're recording this on the 12th. 16 years ago, they hit back. Yeah, and it was this horrible, horrible, horrible tragedy, and it cost us 3,000 lives. And there's nothing that can possibly be said after that fact to alleviate the tragedy that it was. So I'm trying not to use the word "but" here, but compare that to the amount of innocent lives that America has taken before, since, by just a single month. And just count every 30 days. Compare that to the civilian lives that we take in the Middle East.
Well, yeah, your extreme left is coming out. We're getting a little too political.
16 years ago, they hit back. Honestly, that's not extreme. How's that extreme?
It's not extreme.
I'm stating facts.
Yeah,
you just got, but it speaks
but you're
to
getting
the message.
You love getting political.
It speaks to the message in this movie, though.
Yeah.
Okay. It speaks to the core of who the director is. It's that no matter how horrible an act is committed, no matter how horrible an act that was committed, that doesn't mean that one side is automatically right. That doesn't mean that the side that suffered the tragedy on a particular day become the victims for the rest of their lives. Yeah, everyone's prey, everyone's predator.
At first, I was like, "Why the fuck are you bringing this up?" But the more I thought about it, it is relevant.
Thank you.
And you're right, because
I admit when I'm wrong.
Well, earlier you said Hitler was
it's a very rare occurrence, though, so I have to actually think about it.
All right.
And you're totally right to bring that up. And as I was saying before about Miyazaki being very anti-war, is because he grew up in post-World War II Japan. He was born in 1941. So by the time that he was 5 or 6 years old, he was living in the only country in the world to experience 2 atomic bombs. And that's forgetting about all this other cities that we fucking firebombed the shit out of. And not to say that that was entirely unnecessary or entirely wrong in every capacity. They're very touchy situations. But you totally get why this man growing up in a post-World War II Japan, seeing his country being obliterated, is so incredibly anti-war. And that permeates through his work here, and it permeates through his other works as well.
So he's like Itachi, but in real life.
He's basically Itachi.
He is the Dark Hokage, got it.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're right, Sean. You're right.
Nailed it. Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up.
Got that Naruto reference in. You can end it.
Another thing I wanted to talk about here do you think there's any difference in quality in terms of animation between this and what we've been watching?
If you take into consideration that it was made in the 90s, I think it's beautiful. It's beautifully animated.
Yeah, I think by the time,
less.
10, 15 minutes into it, you don't even see the antiquity of the style. It's sort of just it is what it is, and it looks really nice. You get to the point where it's like, why bother trying to improve on it if it looks exactly as it should right now? If you were gonna go and remake it, it would be like, why bother?
You might as well just compare the anime styles of Dragon Ball versus Dragon Ball Super. It's it doesn't actually add to. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, aesthetically, it adds to the quality of the show, but it meets a bare minimum standard from which it doesn't even matter. It's not going to take away
from the experience.
It didn't take away.
I was perfectly fine with it.
It was noticeable. As soon as you turn it on,
I thought the music was really good too.
Yeah, the music was
the soundtrack is fantastic. But what I'm trying to say here is that Ghibli is known for its incredibly beautiful character designs, wonderful backgrounds and just general great animation. Especially because they do a lot of films, and film budgets tend to be a little bit larger. And obviously, Ghibli being the best of the best, get bigger budgets and get more time, and they attract a lot of incredibly talented animators out there. So I think this film looks pretty much better than anything that we've been watching.
Right. Okay. So you mean like the shots?
Yeah, the actual quality
like
of the animation, like the amount of movement.
Okay. Yes, that was a step. That was a cut above.
Yeah, I agree.
I actually noticed that when I was watching.
From the point, like you noticed it from the start when he I'm sorry, Akitasha, what's his name again?
Ashitaka.
Yeah, he went from the very start, like the way he moves his bow, the way he jumps on the elk, the way like all that stuff happens. It's like it's very, very fluid. It's very well done. You notice it from the start.
60 frames.
That scene where San is riding the back of the wolf, and she stands up on the wolf, and then the wolf rams into the barricade and shoots her up on the wall. Mm-hmm. The momentum, you can see where the momentum is gained and where she actually lifts off from the wolf, and you see it really, really vividly. Everything flows. You don't question anything. It all looks so natural, which is probably something that is a huge compliment for its time.
It's a huge compliment regardless, because there are anime that don't get it right today.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which, now that they're on this, do you guys know the difference between, like, do you have an idea of what cell and digital animation are?
No.
Not really, but I did, cell as in CEL, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, it's drawing with like a digital pen or something, isn't it?
I mean, cell animation is what this does and what a lot of older anime do. It doesn't really happen anymore because just doesn't work with production schedules. And it is hand drawing stuff. It is hand drawing it and then putting it through a certain process that gets it onto film. Meanwhile, digital animation is what you were just saying, where they're still hand drawing it, but they're hand drawing it through the actual, like, through a pad or whatever.
So cell, they're drawing it with an actual like sheet of paper, and then they're
pen
just,
and paper sort of stuff. Yeah, especially the farther you go back. And this Ghibli is known for, obviously, Miyazaki being one of his flaws is maybe being a bit of a traditionalist. The quote that I jokingly brought up about his whole view of like saying I feel like this is an insult to life itself, was about something that came out like a year ago of these sort of digital AI guys that came to him and like showed this like really like crazy tech about digital AI and like how it would help motion in anime. And Miyazaki was just like, he literally said, "I feel this is an insult to life itself."
Oh my god.
The one benefit of that is that hand-drawn stuff can look fucking fantastic, as this movie does. Because you have the ability to just really get into every little nitty-gritty detail in the same...
Right, I actually read a really cool thing about that, because as soon as I was done finishing the film, I went on Reddit and I just typed in Princess Mononoke just to see like what people's opinions were on Reddit, because I'm obsessed. And the first thing I saw was like a little fun fact about the director, and it said something about the cells, and it said that I guess the character of Princess Mononoke was made out of like 8,900 and something cells. I guess that's like the unit of measurement for how long it takes to draw or something like that. But apparently he redid like over half of them by himself after all the animators made her, because he wasn't satisfied with it. So it's just like a testament to how much detail he puts into his works and stuff.
That's insane.
Huh.
I thought it was interesting, really, Miller.
Nah, it is.
It is. I'm just
that's like an illness.
I probably butchered it. I'm gonna have to. Let me.
No, that was great. I'm currently struck by all.
Yeah,
That's
I was just like thinking. I was
a little
processing.
bit of dead air after. That was wow. I don't know what to say to that.
Okay, no, here it is. Hayao Miyazaki personally checked each of the 144,000 Princess Mononoke cells and redrew parts of 80,000 of them because he was not satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much just...
So I had the numbers completely wrong. There were way more cells than I thought there were, but I was still right about he did more than half of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
The cells are, think of them as a frame in a way. That's the best way I could shorthand explain it. Just like, I mean, like a literal frame, like, so just like one sheet.
Like a slideshow.
Like one sheet of paper, just kind of like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense, because obviously when you're drawing something as animation, you have to draw every portion of it. Like, actually, when I think about that, people drawing manga and people drawing anime and stuff, it, like, boggles my fucking mind how much work those guys that hand draw the stuff do. Because, like, if you just think about, like, drawing someone throwing a punch, and it say that took, like, 5 cells, it's like 5 frames of, like, starting out standing and then moving the fist up and then throwing the punch and then like drawing the fist back. You have to draw that entire character model for each of those cells. It's crazy.
It is. It's an utterly outrageous amount of work that I mean, there's a lot of issues in the manga and anime industry about overwork, to the point that, I mean, not to dive too deep into this angle, but just to give you a rough...
I'm sure carpal tunnel just runs rampant in that
industry. I mean, that would be the best situation. Recently, this past year, one of the animators, a very well-respected and veteran animator who's done stuff on, like, Naruto and One Piece and, like, a lot of big shows. He was up there in age. I want to say he was, like, in his late 50s, early 60s. He had passed away while he was at work, essentially, from overwork.
It's not that high up there.
Yeah, I mean, there are issues in the anime industry with overwork, especially in the manga industry. There's been, I think it was the Bleach author who essentially did the math on his free time and said, I have about 5 hours a week that are completely mine. Otherwise, I'm eating, pissing, shitting, showering, or mostly just writing the manga. So yeah.
But there's gotta be a better way. Like they can't get the same results through digital
they need
efforts.
more time.
Now,
they
like,
need to push the production dates back and give them more time to do it.
But no, it's still too much work per completed product.
It's a complex issue, one that I would like us to dive into one day, but it would be a few.
I need to learn more about it.
You would all
need
to learn more about it, and it would be a good 2 or 3 episodes of itself. But anyway, yeah, to get back to Princess Mononoke, it is an utterly gorgeous movie, and have any of you played Breath of the Wild yet?
No, I
have it downstairs.
I got it as a birthday present, and I'm almost a whole year older.
All right, but yeah, just my initial thought while, like, we try to watch, me, Billy, and Ryan now live together. We tried to watch it last night, and we got like through 5 minutes of it, but it was kind of not good stream quality and was hitching up a lot. But my initial thought was, holy shit, Breath of the Wild takes so much from this movie, because just to dive into some of the similarities. Right from the get-go, Ashitaka is riding around in a pseudo-horseback sort of situation, and he's highly proficient in a bow. Meanwhile, he wears a blue top and tan pants, quite familiar to Link's hero's garb in Breath of the Wild. He's doing this over, like, green hills, and it's very picturesque, and he's fighting this creature that has spider-like legs, like the Guardians do in Breath of the Wild. And he's from this town that's, like, sort of a hidden ninja village vibe, which in Breath of the Wild, that's Kakariko. And even Kakariko is ran by a matriarch who is very old, just like in this movie, where they have their oracle. And even the color schemes that they're using for all their clothes, even not just Ashitaka's, but all the supporting characters in it, it feels so much like Breath of the Wild. I'm like...
So basically what you're saying is Nintendo's greatest accomplishment in the past 5 years has been completely
plagiarizing,
stolen from Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that first, because you put it a lot better than I could have, because you played the game. But I definitely, and I noted this in my head like multiple times while watching the movie, definitely got a hardcore Zelda vibe from this movie. Just pretty much just the garb is all I had to go on. But the landscapes were similar, like you said, all of that. I completely agree. I picked up on as much as I could have picked up on without having played Breath of the Wild specifically. But I got how this character was basically Link.
Yeah, I mean, I think I haven't seen Princess Mononoke before we did this podcast, So I was
courage, wisdom, strength.
Yeah,
And three like main
fuck
characters.
off. Anyway,
Don't forget Ganondorf. He was in there
fuck.
somewhere. He was
That would have been Eboshi.
fuck off.
Go on.
As I was saying, and burping, I hadn't seen this movie before us doing this podcast. So when Breath of the Wild came out back in March, I saw some posts like on Twitter and some articles saying here and there about there's a lot of similarities with Princess Mononoke and a lot of other things. And it's not surprising that a Studio Ghibli film, one especially as beloved as Princess Mononoke, influenced Breath of the Wild. And there's a lot of themes that also kind of that go with Breath of the Wild as well, because there's this general vibe in Breath of the Wild, hence the name Breath of the Wild, that it's about being out in nature and sort of just experiencing it. That a lot of that game is just there's not a whole lot of towns, and you're just wandering this very picturesque landscape. There's a lot of green, grassy areas, and while watching Mononoke, I was like, God damn, this is really fucking amazing, and I don't blame Nintendo and Miyamoto and all of his crew for just ripping the fuck off of this, like stealing everything that they could. And even the soundtrack in Mononoke sounds very Zelda-ish. Like,
Yeah.
I know it's obviously fully orchestral, which they weren't able to do in video games in '97. I think the Zelda game that came out, I think Ocarina of Time was '97, I remember correctly, and that wasn't. It was fully orchestral in the sense that it was digital, but they didn't do fully orchestral until like Skyward Sword. But even so, like, there's so much about this that reminded me of Zelda, and as someone who, as I'm rambling on here, you can tell that I fucking adore Zelda. It's my favorite video game series, probably my favorite piece of media ever. So
Kingdom Hearts.
No, fuck off. That's So Mononoke reminding me of that, in short, is a very, very good thing.
Yeah, it makes me want to play Breath of the Wild.
Shit, it's a fantastic game.
Yeah, even the way Ashitaka used his sword and his bow reminded me of exactly how Zelda uses his sword.
I hate you so much. I know what you're doing.
I really liked all the bomb puzzles and.
It's just that Zelda is such a cool character, and he uses his sword in such a way that I'm just gonna keep driving that point home that Zelda is in fact a boy and Link doesn't exist.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
That's cardinal sin, Billy.
Good thing I'm not a cardinal.
That's not what that means, but go on.
Now you never will be.
I specialize in bird law, don't tell me what it means.
You
I feel like I made myself perfectly redundant.
You have.
Yeah.
Billy, you're the reason there are tons and tons of awful, unfunny posts on our gaming about Zelda's not a girl, guys. Get it through your heads. And they're trying to be like this funny little meme post, and what I'm trying to say is that our gaming is a terrible fucking Reddit board.
I thought you were gonna say, Billy, you're the reason for Hurricane Irma.
Jeez.
Why did you think he was gonna say that?
Okay. Before we dive anywhere we don't need to be diving, any other remarks you all would like to make about Princess Mononoke before we go into the final question? I know Ryan likes to jump the gun sometimes.
Well,
Here, go ahead.
since we're not gonna, never mind. I don't want to jump the gun. I guess I won't say anything.
If that's it, then I'll just get right to the big question. Usually we do first episodes, so I'm not going to ask, are you going to keep watching? Because obviously we all watched this movie.
The answer's no.
Yeah, totally. So, my question is, would you be inclined to watch anything else from Studio Ghibli based off of what we've talked about in this podcast and what you think of Princess Mononoke? Sean.
Ask me. Yay. Let me think about it. Yeah, I really would. I kind of really want to watch Spirited Away now. Just because that's the one I kind of recognize that was from the same studio that seemed familiar.
Okay. Any other brilliant thoughts pouring out of that beautiful brain of yours?
Well, nothing that hasn't already been touched on in the podcast. Just the art style. I actually am a fan of. I got immediately used to it. Like I thought it looked kind of old, but that didn't really.
They do have
It's not really a valid criticism.
They have a traditionalist
Because it's not
vibe
even-
going on there. Like 97, a lot of things coming out around 97 don't exactly look like that, especially in shows.
Looks just like Berserk.
Yeah, totally. Fuck you, Ryan. Anyway, they're beloved for their art style and their very picturesque sort of vibes, and even to the point where they've done a lot of video game stuff. Some of you probably heard of Ni no Kuni as well, which is they did all the art on that.
Wrath of the White
Yep,
Witch.
they did all the art for that. All right, so
But yeah, well, I was just gonna say, I mentioned this in previous episodes where, I think it might have been the last episode, where I like to just leave and think about not just the movie that I just saw, not just the characters that were presented, but the world and the themes and what might be going on in another part of that world, and like what the deer god really is, or where it came from, or what he actually does, and why these other animals worship him instead of just being irrelevant to his path. Like that kind of stuff is really interesting to me. Like, why do they worship him if he's never going to give you what you want? He's just going to do what he wants to do. So even that question is like, I'd like to get to the bottom of that. So I'll just sit and think about it by myself until I find some sort of satisfactory answer, or just move on. And that's the kind of stuff that I really enjoy being presented with.
then you should totally watch more Ghibli stuff, because they totally have an aesthetic of this is pretty and this could be fun to watch, and you could leave it and not really think about it afterwards. But if you want to, there's a lot of depth to their shit. Billy, would you be interested in watching anything else from Ghibli?
Well, I have watched a couple other things by them, but yeah, definitely, it was really enjoyable. I really liked it. Animation's great, the stories are great, the themes are great. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Except for the first time they showed the deer god's face, it freaked me the fuck out. Because I did not expect it to have such a human-like face. I thought it was going to be like an actual deer, like more like the elk's face, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then it just like zoomed in on the face, and I was just like, good God.
there is some creepy ass shit in their movies. But what stuff of theirs have you seen before?
I saw Spirited Away, but it was at one of my ex's house like a long time ago, and we barely paid attention. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And then I saw.
You're very busy disappointing her.
Yeah, exactly. And Grave of the Fireflies.
And you saw all this before, as you mentioned last podcast.
Yeah, but this is another one that I saw a long time ago. But honestly, like watching it right now, like I don't even know if it was this that I saw. Because you were like you brought it up, and you were like Princess Mononoke. And I was like, oh, I've seen that shit already. And then I watched it, and like I was waiting for the moment that I recognized something, and I was like, I don't think I've seen this. Or maybe I have, but like I don't know. It was a new experience for me. Whether it was on a TV in front of me before or not, watching it now was a new experience for me.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because as soon as I went onto the website and I typed it in and it came up, I was like, I've actually seen that cover art before. Like I've seen that somewhere around. And I was like, well, I'm kind of excited to watch this movie because it's obviously popular. If I'm familiar with that.
I do have a T-shirt of it. I've had it for like a year, and yeah, I bought it before I ever watched the movie, mostly because the art on that T-shirt was just fucking cool. So maybe you saw that.
Maybe. Couldn't tell you. Maybe.
You're a dirty little imposter.
All right, Ryan. Same question. Would you be interested in watching anything else from Studio Ghibli?
Absolutely. I also saw Grave of the Fireflies, which I didn't know was Studio Ghibli until it was said like halfway through, or whenever we mentioned that. I loved that, and I also very, very much enjoyed this. The only thing, what I was saying earlier about jumping the gun, I didn't want to do that, so I would say nothing. I was just going to say that since this was a movie and we couldn't answer that question, that I wanted to say how much I liked this. So you're pretty much right to stop me, because This movie pretty much had me. It was long. Don't get me wrong. Like I really had to squeeze it in, but there wasn't really.
Oh, God damn
Sorry.
it, Millie.
We're gonna edit
Things
that out,
Ryan
everyone.
doesn't normally say.
No, that's not true.
Edit that out, everyone.
Wow.
So I squeezed it in as best I could, and to be honest, I was thankful for the amount of effort because how should I put this? The satisfaction that I got.
The climax was thunderous.
Yes, after having been able to successfully squeeze this in, was unparalleled to anything that I felt my entire life. It was a good movie, guys. It was a good movie, and I liked it. And Studio Ghibli, obviously, they're responsible for 2 of the best anime movies that I've seen. Granted, I don't have a huge amount of
You've seen 2 now.
experience with squeezing fantastic things in, but obviously my first 2 times have been excellent, so I plan to be as promiscuous as possible with Studio Ghibli.
Oh God. Alright, so now me. I've seen a handful of Ghibli films before. Not as much as I should have, given the fact that I'm the more seasoned anime fan here. I've really only watched Totoro, Grave of the Firefly, Spirited Away. I want to say one other thing. It's probably been like 1 or 2 others that I've seen. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But yeah, I'm based off. If this was the first movie of Ghibli that I ever watched and I never heard anything about them before, I would totally be down to watch whatever the fuck they did because I absolutely love this. My only real complaint about it was that some of the resolution at the end felt maybe a little rushed. You could have gotten a bit more out of San and what's his face, Ashitaka. Like
Ashitaka.
It felt a little bit like, okay, that's the end of our relationship. Like in like 2 split seconds. Like and that.
See ya. Okay.
And that's how it felt for.
Yeah, I think that went along with the theme a little bit, though. I'm glad they didn't decide to take like the cliche route, like we're in love now, let's disappear to the forest. It's more of just like we're 2 different people. You obviously belong in the forest.
I think that theme is fine. I think that how their solution was good. I just think how that scene could have gone a little farther, and the subsequent theme or scenes could have gone a little bit deeper. Like they all just like they go across all like the different characters and their endings, and it just feels like an ending to like a BioWare game where like this happened then, and then this happened after that, and then this happened, and now we're credits. Roll the fucking credits. Get out of here. Go home.
So you're saying it's kind of like Kabuto as a main player in the 4th Ninja War.
Fuck Kabuto.
But then he was allowed to run an
He's a
orphanage
medical
in a leaf
fucking
village.
ninja who wears fucking glasses. Fix your fucking eyes, you shitbag.
No, he does when he goes into Sage mode.
Nah, fuck off. We're done with that. Anyway, yeah, we all seem to really fucking love this movie. We're all totally down to watch more. And my other complaint was, it goes back to this anime industry in general, and fuck you for making things that are enjoyable to watch hard to fucking get, because today I spent 2 hours driving around me, Ryan, and Billy's town that is, like, it's not a city, but it's right outside of a city, so we have a bunch of fucking options where you think you would buy something like this, and it's just not available. Because that's fucking anime, and that's also Disney being their fucking dickhead selves of like bringing things out of the vault. Time to buy this. If you don't buy it now, you'll never get it. And like I know it was available on Amazon, but like not even like when I looked at it.
Yeah, but you want instant gratification. You don't want
there's no streaming options that are good, so we all watched it on Kiss fucking Anime. We illegally streamed it. So fuck you, anime industry. I wish I could support you, but you're fucking terrible at what you do.
The experience actually wasn't that bad for me on Kiss.
Yeah,
it's pretty smooth.
We've been watching.
Once you told me how to hide all the ads, I was like, oh, okay. I thought that made sense.
Behind the scenes here.
There are ads all over.
You might have ad. And behind the scenes here, we often watch things on Kiss Anime for this podcast because it's just easier. Because the experiences on other platforms are either limited or terrible. Like Crunchyroll is like the one good provider right now. Netflix sucks. Amazon sucks. Alright, not gonna get into that. Anyway, we need to ask the next big question. What are we gonna be watching 2 weeks from now? We're gonna be diving into our final theme of our three-theme, or that's a tongue twister. You got what I meant. So...
It's not a tongue twister, you drunk bastard.
Fuck you. They sell beer at Walmart in Ohio. I don't get that in New Jersey.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
That's the white trashest thing I've ever heard.
it is. I totally get white trash now. I totally get middle America just fat and just fucking lazy.
Yeah, the first time you go out at 11:30 at night in sweatpants and a really shitty shirt with your hair in a mess and you grab beer and a frozen pizza, you'll understand the meaning. I've done that multiple times since I moved out here, and I'm like, I'm that fucking guy. Like that guy that everybody makes fun of. I'm that guy sometimes.
Okay. As I was saying, we're doing a 90s week next time. So this is the only technically 90s anime that we've seen, but films can be very different than shows. So our two options, and you're picking off of name alone, is Great Teacher Onizuka or Slayers. So, Sean, pick one.
Great Teacher, Onizuka.
Onizuka? Okay. One for Juchio, as it is often called. Billy.
Slayer.
Alright, tie. Ryan.
This is it. Oh, what should I do with my newfound powers? I'm also going to go with Grand Theft Onizuka.
Okay. So, Great Teacher Onizuka is what we'll be watching in 2 weeks' time.
Now what I'll be watching.
You don't get a choice.
I'm watching Slayers.
I'm
What
on
is
Slayers,
Slayers
goddammit.
You
wanna
don't
be a
get to
teacher.
know. Fuck you.
Okay, fine.
Alright. So now that we have that decided, we'll be doing that in 2 weeks' time like we always do. We generally space these things out. Every other Friday I try to get up this podcast. But we are going to try to be doing a bonus episode sometime soon, probably in the next week or so, about our favorite anime. So we're going to be we'll be talking about 3 anime each. So look forward to that. Otherwise, you can always go back to our previous episodes. We recently did Kino's Journey, which was a lovely conversation, and I ended up finishing that personally, and I really enjoyed it, and I think if you 3 haven't, totally get into it. Next is, I know last time I said I was going to get out a Death Note or a Hellblade video, and I didn't. Partly because of moving is a pain in the ass, partly because I've been a little lazy, and partly because I wasn't sure what to write about for certain things. But the Death Note Netflix film, I have a video coming out probably in the next... It should be out by the time you are listening to this podcast, hopefully. Unless I die or something. And if that's the case, then you probably won't be listening to this podcast. Unless, like, Ryan gets into editing.
Could be better.
Lord knows he'll...
I have been known to dabble in.
Yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. And as for the Hellblade piece, I'm probably just going to publish it as a written thing. Trying to just not get too many non-anime things out on this channel. A little bit here and there, but not too much. And finally, you can follow me on Twitter at wordsmaybe. No space or anything, just all one word. So, yeah. That's been a lovely podcast from your lovely podcast boys talking about some of the anime out there in the world. So until next time, peace, motherfuckers.